Happy Thanksgiving and welcome to the Farmhouse. I'm Stephanie Spiker.
I'm Candace Wierzbowski.
This episode is dropping on Thanksgiving, so we're kicking off the holiday season by talking with a farmer who grows one of the season's most iconic symbols, the Christmas tree. We're going to be talking to Shanelle Lee, co-owner of Heritage Tree Farm in Rothsville, Pennsylvania. Shanelle and her family have been growing Christmas trees since 2014. They farm and sell 4 varieties of trees: blue spruce, concolor fir, Douglas fir, and Fraser fir. And I can't wait to hear from Shanelle which type she favors and how she knows which to recommend to her customers. But first, let's talk turkey.
So, in addition to sharing our Thanksgiving meal with our friends, family, and loved ones, many of us are often tempted to share a little with our pets. Steph, have you ever snuck Suki a little treat from the Thanksgiving table?
Not from the table. I'm pretty hard and fast with my rule about not intentionally giving her people food. However, she does hang out in the kitchen while I cook because she knows that occasionally ingredients fall to the floor.
I am guilty of feeding my dog Pickle human food because I always just say, good dogs get treats.
Also, isn't your youngest son likes to give little treats to Pickle as well?
Yeah, Pickle is very well fed. Anyway, well, as any responsible pet owner knows, while some human food is okay for pets to have in moderation, there are some things that, are okay for us as humans to eat, but can be dangerous for our fur babies. So I'm putting this out there as kind of a public service announcement to all you pet lovers out there. We have a story on LancasterFarming.com called "Can My Dog Eat Turkey? Holiday Dishes That Are Unsafe for Pets." And it outlines which of our favorite holiday dishes dogs and cats should avoid and which ones are safe to share. First, the good news that I'm sure you've all been waiting for: you can indeed share some turkey with your dog or cat, as long as you take off the skin. Some other holiday foods that are safe for your pets are potatoes, both regular and sweet, plain carrots, peas or green beans, and pumpkin. The bad news for pet lovers is that, there are plenty of holiday foods that your dog or cat should definitely avoid, and that list includes anything having to do with dairy products, grapes, raisins, or currants, onions, scallions, garlic, and similar bulb vegetables, and stuffing of any kind. And for a full list, you can go to LancasterFarming.com to see that. So yes, enjoy your Thanksgiving meal or leftovers, and maybe consider slipping your puppy a little skinless turkey. Steph, you baked up a little treat the other day that could potentially be a Thanksgiving dessert.
I did, yeah. So we have some pie recipes on LancasterFarming.com. The headline is "Indulge Your Sweet Tooth with these 10 must-try pie recipes." And one of them was such a must-try for me because it was a little surprising. Spoiler alert, at the end of the day, it did taste like apple pie, which I did not expect it to, because it's made with green tomatoes. I'm not a tomato fan in general, which I feel like is a bit of a sin here because Candace loves fresh tomatoes.
Well, I do like tomatoes, but the idea of a baked tomato pie doesn't exactly make me come running.
Yeah, so I feel like this was a recipe submitted by a reader, Julia. She's from New York, and her note, I'll read you her note. It says, "Don't write this off before you've tried it. It's scrumptious. It tastes like apple pie." And her note had me so intrigued that I was like, you know what? I'm going to make it. I'm going to document the process for our social media, and then I'm going to make all my coworkers try it. So yeah, there is a video on our TikTok of both the process of baking the pie, which honestly, at the end of the day, I don't make a lot of pies, so it was an interesting experience for me. And then there's also a video on our TikTok page as well of people trying the pie, and a few of them did not know what they were eating ahead of time, which was interesting to see their genuine reaction. So I would say the overall consensus was it does kind of taste like apple pie, and it was pretty good, and definitely not what anyone expected it to taste like. So at this point, when you're listening to this, I'm guessing you've already got your Thanksgiving food plans all laid out, but just in case you're looking for a last-minute pie recipe and you want to do something a little odd, maybe try making the green tomato pie, maybe.
Mm-hmm. And Christmas is just around the corner, and you can always have pie at Christmas too.
That is true.
Yeah. And speaking of Christmas, I'm sure some of you guys are getting ready to go get your Christmas tree anytime now. So let's go talk to Shanelle and hear about how she and her family are farming Christmas trees. Let's welcome her into the farmhouse. Shanelle, welcome to the farmhouse.
Thanks so much. I'm happy to be here.
So what is it about cutting your own tree that you think people find appealing?
I think it is a magical part of the season because it allows you to feel a little bit rustic and a little bit like a farmer, even if you spend most of your time indoors or you sit in an office desk. It's a time that you get to be outdoors with your family. You get to pick a tree together, drink some hot chocolate, and enjoy a little bit of farmland, a little bit of, I don't know, it feels nostalgic, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's something very traditional.
So you and I actually talked last year, I think it might have also been November, I don't quite remember, for an article on lancasterfarming.com and in the paper. And in that interview, you said that having a tree farm was actually a dream of your mom's. So how were you able to turn her dream into a reality?
So it was a lot of hard work. It still continues to be a business where we don't farm anything else. We just farm Christmas trees. But it continues to be a business where you think you know what you're doing and something changes and you've learned that you don't know anything about what you're doing. So we've been planting for 15 years and harvesting our own trees this will be our 11th year harvesting. And yeah, it's a constant learning process. So establishing was a lot of, we owned the farmland and leased it to a farmer. So we slowly could take back a couple acres at a time to plant. And then it turned into, once we had the full farm planted and were able to open, then it was learning the business side of things more than the farming side of things. The advantage to Christmas tree farming is that there's an organization called the PCTGA, the Pennsylvania Christmas Tree Growers Association. And it's a wealth of knowledge. There's just a lot of farmers who have been in the business for a long time who are very willing to share their knowledge, which is huge, especially when you're first starting out.
There's a farmer on our staff here, Tom Vineski, who likes to joke that there is an association for everything. But I'm happy to hear that there's a Christmas Tree Growers Association as well.
Yes.
So what tree types do you recommend to customers who, maybe come to you and they're not sure, do I want a Douglas? Do I want a Fraser? Maybe a blue spruce? Mm-hmm. How do you advise them?
So the most popular tree is, at least around this area, is a Fraser fir. They're like the traditional Christmas tree, typically grow tall and skinny, have that real authentic Christmas tree smell. My husband and I prefer a concolor tree. It kind of it's not a hybrid, but it kind of reminds you of a hybrid between a blue spruce and a Fraser. It has soft needles, and stronger branches, not as strong as a Fraser, but then it also has this incredible blue-green color, like a blue spruce gets. And it also smells like citrus instead of a traditional Christmas tree. So a concolor is actually hypoallergenic. So it's great for people with allergies. And pets, from what we hear, don't enjoy them. So they don't bother the Christmas tree. People that want a blue spruce want it for a couple of reasons. We have one family that comes and they actually burn candles on their Christmas tree. So they get a blue spruce because their branches are the firmest. Now their needles are super sharp. They'll cut your arms. They're not fun to decorate, but they have the blue-green color that is just, there's nothing like it. They're beautiful. And they smell really good too.
I love the idea of how scent is just as important as, appearance, just because, they say that scent is one of the strongest senses in terms of creating and storing memories,
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I feel like for me, that's a big reason of why I always want a real tree versus artificial is you have the smell, you walk in the house and it smells like Christmas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We sell a candle from a company that's based out of Maine. And he's a Christmas tree farmer who one year shearing his trees decided he was going to take the needles and crush them up and mix them up with wax. Oh. And so he actually drags a tarp through his fields when he trims his trees and collects his needles and branches. grinds them up and puts them in this wax. And it is just the best smelling candle. Smells exactly like a Christmas tree. None of that chemically and we have people with fake trees that come just to buy those candles so that they can get the scent without the work of a real tree. Because a real tree is a lot of work. Yeah.
What a great idea, though.
I was gonna say, now I need to come buy one of those candles for sure.
They're pretty fantastic.
So over the years that you guys have been selling trees, you've seen so much demand that you've had to switch to a reservation system for your choose and cut trees. So do you feel like this works better both for you guys as farmers and also for your customers?
Yes, absolutely. Things got a little out of hand during COVID, and we learned a lot of lessons about demand and how to meet people's demands and how to take care of our customers in a way that honors them and is healthy for our business. And we really felt like the switch to appointments not only allowed us to know how many trees we can process in a day, so how many employees we need to have there, but it also allows the fields to feel a little less full of people and gives people the ability, they're not standing in line all day long waiting for their tag and then waiting for their tree and then waiting for their tree to get back to their car. It just is a much nicer, it feels, we always came into it wanting to have a small farm, and it allows to keep the feeling of a small farm all season, and we wanted to stay open all season, which was another reason we knew we had to switch to appointment based, because we would sell out that first weekend every year.
Wow.
Yeah, that kind of dovetails into my next question. And it's just about the fact that, for Christmas tree farmers, you guys have just this incredibly small window of time to really make a profit off your crop. How does that affect your business decisions or strategies throughout the year?
It's very difficult when you have a month, basically a month to make all your income. It's very difficult to have any idea how you want to spend, what profit you have, if you have a profit that year, and how to plan for the next year. So this year we are in the biggest shortage we've ever been in. We only have 150 trees to sell this year, which is not enough by leaps and bounds. And so we're making a lot of decisions right now about what the next year is going to look like and the extra things that we can cut out, or supplemental income, ways we can supplement our income this season. So typically we do wreath classes to help supplement that. They've dropped off a little bit. So this year we actually decided to host like a preview to our Christmas shop, and we're going to have that the Monday before Thanksgiving. So this will be over by the time this airs, but we're going to do a shopping preview, and we're hoping to bring in a little more business that way and to supplement the lack of tree sales. But it's definitely, unfortunately, even though you make money for 1 month a year, you have to spend money pretty much every month of the year to maintain the farm. So in the spring, it's like we're fertilizing, we're paying guys to help plant trees, we're paying for our trees. And then over the summer, you often need pesticides and herbicides to go in your trees and all that. So yeah, it's just a constant messing with your budget, seeing where you can make space and where you can sacrifice so that the health of your trees still stays good and the quality of the product we're putting out is still good.
That kind of leads into my next question, that you have such limited supply this year of trees that I know you're only going to be open one weekend this year for the reservations for Choose and Cuts, which I've seen are already full. So sorry to anyone listening, you missed it. But it does say on your website that you plan on having pre-cut trees available in weekends throughout December. So other than like the experience itself of going and cutting your own tree, is there really a big difference between getting a Choose and Cut tree versus a pre-cut tree?
So the experience is definitely a huge part of it. And we know for some families, a pre-cut tree is actually preferable because they have little kids or they don't want to make the effort to go in the field. So it's nice to be able to offer both. The pre-cuts definitely are going to hold a lot differently than a fresh cut tree. Typically, most pre-cuts, ours come out of North Carolina. They're a different Fraser than what we grow here. So they're a little bit different than what people are used to. They have a flatter needle. They're just a little different. And sometimes they hold their needles really well, and sometimes they don't. And we've never had a growing year like this year where we had such extreme periods of drought. Lots of rain, lots of no rain, and then continuing on that pattern just the entire year. So we are also concerned even about how our own trees are going to hold needles this year. Yeah.
There's been some talk in the past couple of years about, how the prices of Christmas trees, like many things, have gone up, and that there might be a shortage of Christmas trees. Why is that happening, and what do you wish more people understood about farming Christmas trees?
So I think as far as our price increases have gone, we have seen a decline in the number of trees we can sell. And also, we have just learned where we need to be in the market as far as what a fresh cut tree actually costs us to grow. So that tree's in the ground between 7 and 10 years, depending on how large it is when you cut it down. So that's 7 to 10 years of us fertilizing and using herbicide and trimming and mowing around it. So a lot of work goes into that one little Christmas tree that goes into someone's home. And I think that is definitely the biggest misconception, is that we put these trees in the ground and we let them grow for a few years and then we cut them down. And that's what we thought when we went into the business, and we were very surprised. So I think that's probably the hardest part that we encounter, is just that knowledge gap, that this isn't a get rich quick scheme at all. It's not a get rich scheme ever. It's definitely not get rich quick. You have to love the business to be in it, and you have to be content with having years where things are going to be tight and things are going to be hard. And you have to be willing to work with your hands, to get dirty, and to suffer some loss when you lose. This year, we lost about half of what we planted because of the drought. So I think all of those reasons are reasons why there's a Christmas tree shortage. We don't see a lot of younger people coming into the industry. We see a lot of people in their 50s and 60s that have had farms for a long time and are ready to retire, but don't necessarily have children or family members who want to purchase them. And a few years ago, even a farm that we used to go to before we had trees to cut down our own tree, he was ready to be done selling trees, and he couldn't sell it as a Christmas tree farm. He ended up selling it as a farm, and the person that bought it harvested all the trees in 1 year and turned it into farmland. So it's just it's a super niche business. And a lot of Christmas tree farmers, or what we call it hobby farming, we all have jobs outside of here. So yeah, you have to be willing to work your nights and weekends, and fit it in the spaces in between everything else.
Yeah. This all sounds so familiar. We've heard variations of the story from lots of other farmers that we've talked to on here. Just the disconnect between consumers and farmers, and how people don't understand why their produce is priced a certain way. I think, like, with Christmas trees, it's almost blown out to like a new extreme, because okay, yes, like your peas might cost a certain amount, but that's one season's worth of work that went into creating those peas. Whereas this is 7 to 10 years worth of work going into this one product. And it's a product that people care a lot about, because this is also like a sentimental product. Yes. This isn't just, buying something that you're going to cook and then that's it, So I get it. So, given that it takes 7 to 10 years for trees to grow to the point at which they're ready to sell, how do you look at things like the current dry spell and forecast out?
So it makes us super nervous. We have learned a lot in the past 10 years. We had a season that would have been not quite this bad, but similar to this about 8 years ago. And that's unfortunately the harvesting period that we're in. That's part of the reason that we're so short this year. We did not, during that past drought, we did not compensate for our loss in the following year's plantings. And so we just missed out on the opportunity to have trees that were kind of following up behind. So we learned now we count the holes in our fields at the beginning of the season next year, and we order our trees. Now, you have to order your trees in the fall, so you also don't really know how many you're needing to plant in the spring. So we take a rough guess of what we can fill in, and we try to maximize. We only have 10 acres here. And so we try to maximize our planting space as much as we can, that we can get the trees per acre that we need, that even if we lose that, typically we lose about 10% before we harvest. So if we plant 1,500 trees, we're really hopeful that we'll only lose 150 in the 7 to 10 years that we're farming. And then we'll have about 1,000 trees or a little more than 1,000 trees to harvest.
Yeah, that's tough, having to constantly be thinking like 10 years ahead all the time. I mean, I don't know what I'm doing next week half the time. So
and it's a constant joke in our family because my parents are in the business with us. And last year, this past spring when we planted, my dad said, these are your trees. I probably won't be here when you harvest them. Now, hopefully he'll still be here. He's 73, so I hope he's still here. But the reality is he's probably not going to be helping in 10 years.
Yeah.
And so my husband and I started talking about the fact that now is the time when we should be checking in with our kids. Like, is this something you want to continue? Because we're putting these trees in the ground and they're going to be your responsibility in 10 years. They'll be 24 and 20. So it'll be their farm then. So yeah, it's something that you're constantly thinking your long game.
It's a whole different level of like farm transition. Like, it's already transitioning farms is already such a tough process, but again, you're having to think so far in advance for all of it. Wow. So we'll switch to a little bit of a lighter topic for the next question. So you talked already about how you in the past have done wreath workshops and you make handmade wreaths that you sell. So what are some of your tips for people who are hoping to create the perfect wreath?
Oh boy. So I have the luxury of having a really nice wreath machine that I can just like clamp them all in. I step on a little foot pedal and it clamps it down. If you are hand wiring your wreath, God bless you. And honestly, the more greens, the better. I think there's never you're never going to say, I wish I put more greens in there, or I wish I didn't put more greens in there. Yeah. Anything can be covered with a little hot glue. That's one of my favorite things to do. Now the ones I sell aren't hot glued at all, but the one on my front door usually is. And bow covers any manner of holes that you have. That's always just put a bow on it. We went to a wreath decorating class a long time ago through the PCTGA. And the lady that was making them would always say, after you make a wreath, you pick it up and you throw it across the room. And if it stays together, that's a good wreath. So the first year I'm making my wreaths, I'm just learning how to do this. And I was so proud. I finally finished one and I picked it up and I threw it across the room and it all fell apart.
Oh no.
And I was like, oh, come on. It was so much work. It probably took me an hour. But now I have it down pretty much to a science. But no, I say put the time in, use lots of greens, and worst case scenario, hot glue it and stick a bow on it.
Hey, solid advice.
Yeah, I feel like add a little decoration and you're good to go. It doesn't matter.
Everything looks better from farther away. You're usually too close to it anyway. Just take a step back.
That's true. If someone's just walking down the street and they see your front door, they're not going to see the little imperfections.
No, we always notice our mistakes more than everyone else does.
Very true. So I know for you guys, you're in Lancaster County and most of your customers are relatively local, but I know the last time we talked, you said you also get customers from out of state who specifically make the trip in to come and get their trees. So what do you think drives people to travel such long distances to come and get a farm fresh tree?
So the families that we see coming out of Baltimore, it's typically availability. They don't have the farms down there like we do. And so when they do have a farm that they can get to down there, the prices are ridiculous. And the same, we have quite a few that come down from New York City to get their trees. And we have a family who comes down from New York and makes a whole weekend of it. They shop at all our local grocery stores because the groceries are cheaper here. They go to a meat market and get all their meats. And then they stop at us last and pick up a Christmas tree before driving home. But yeah, we typically see it's mostly availability that brings them here, and the ability to choose and cut. A lot of places, you don't have the option; it's just fresh cut.
Makes sense.
Yeah. All right. So, Shanelle, what does being a woman in ag mean to you?
That's a good question. That's a hard question.
It is, yeah.
We always save the hardest for last.
Oh, okay. So my family has kind of been in and out of ag for since my grandfather. My grandfather farmed tomatoes. That was my mom's dad on the same land that we're harvesting trees on now. And mom's older sister Carol always helped with the harvesting. Mom didn't. She was on the younger side, and he got out of the farming business, and the land was leased by a farmer. And then when we took the land back, to me, it's the reason we named it Heritage Tree Farm. It was part of our family's legacy that we've been on this land for 100 years, and that we've been able to use this land for what we believe God has intended it for, in order to grow something and make something that can create special memories and be part of a family tradition. And yeah, so being a woman in it, there's not a whole lot of women that I've met on the Christmas tree side that are actively involved in the farming. A lot of the women in the tree business make the wreaths, do the gift shops, and my mom and I do that. But it's important to me that I'm actively on the land. I do all our mowing. We're always out there. We pick pine cones every spring. We fertilize by hand every spring. We help with the planting, and that stuff's important to me because I think that we can come to a place where it's gender rolled like everything else. Like you're in the gift shop, you're working with the customers. But I just love having my hands in the dirt, understanding the process of what it takes to grow something from a 2-year-old seedling to a 10-year-old tree that's 10 feet tall, hopefully. Yeah, I just think there's a missing piece, especially in tree farming, where women are concerned. And so it's been fun to have the business with my mom and raise my daughter in it. That gives her some ownership in seeing how women can do this too. Women can drive a tractor, and women can pull a trailer, and women can cut down a tree. I use a chainsaw, but that's okay. Yeah, I just think it's good to know that we're physically capable of doing the work, and not just mentally capable of doing the office work.
That's awesome to hear.
I love that answer, honestly. That was
Thanks.
Well, that wraps us up. So thank you so much, Shanelle, for joining us at the farmhouse. I'm very excited now for Christmas, even though as we're recording this, we have a little while to go.
We were setting up the shop this morning, and I was like, this makes me so excited. It's starting to feel like Christmas. Yeah. Exactly.
And while people are listening to this, it will be Thanksgiving Day, so it'll be nice and close to Christmas at that point. So
Oh yeah, it's perfectly acceptable to start listening to Christmas music and baking your cookies that next day.
Yeah. I agree. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Shanelle.
Thank you.
That was fantastic talking to Shanelle. I love kind of hearing the behind the scenes work that goes into farming Christmas trees, because I'll be honest with you, it really wasn't until a few years ago that I started even thinking about the fact that Christmas trees have to be farmed, Obviously someone's growing them, but I don't think I really put two and two together, and I think a lot of people are probably in the same boat. I don't know, Steph, do you know what kind of tree you're going to be getting this year?
I don't. I kind of go back and forth. I feel like for a while, I always went for a Douglas fir because I feel like their needles are very soft and they're very full, which I like. Last year though, I went with a concolor, which is what Shanelle says she loved, and I really did love it. And it is true that if you break off a needle, it smells like citrus, which is really cool. So I really did like the concolor. So I might I might stick with that. We'll see. I feel like it's gonna be like go to the tree farm and make like a spontaneous decision of which tree. Yeah, which tree is calling my name. I don't know. Do you have favorites?
I see, this is the thing. Like, there was a few years ago, I think you wrote a guide to like how to select the Christmas tree for you between, Douglas's and Fraser's, blue spruce, concolor. And I remember having that open on my phone as I was walking through the tree lot trying to make my decision. I think initially I wanted a Fraser, but the place where we get our trees did not have any Fraser firs, or at least not in our budget for the day. And so we wound up getting a Douglas. My thing is, I need a tree that can hold heavy ornaments.
No, I'm the same way, and I feel like that's one of the reasons why I did switch away from Douglas, because they are really full and pretty, but the branches are not quite as firm. And like, I don't just have the like traditional red and green like baubles that people put on trees. Like, my ornaments are all a lot of them are from childhood, and they're kind of sentimental and a little silly and heavy. I have a Philly Fanatic ornament, which should surprise nobody if I'm sure I've talked about the Phillies before on this podcast. If not, that's shocking for me. But he's a heavy guy. Like, he's got a big belly. If you've seen the Philly Fanatic, he's a big dude. So he needs a hefty branch.
Yeah, I've gotten many an ornament that need a hefty branch. We're the same way, where we don't really have a whole lot of just generic baubles. We have a box of them. I guess if we ever get like a tree too massive to hold, like, that we can't fill with our own, ornaments. But I kind of prefer having ornaments that actually have some sentimental value, where you can look at an ornament and it's like, oh, that's from my trip to this place, or this ornament was, something that my mom gave to me.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, when my husband and I first started living together and we got our first tree, we didn't really have a whole lot of ornaments. And so we made it a tradition that every year for Christmas we give each other an ornament. So we have a lot of ornaments now that we've given each other, and we have some real weird ones on our tree because of this tradition. But I mean, I love them, and I can't imagine replacing them with something just generic. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've seen like the theme trees, and they're very beautiful when they're done like very like artistically, but I don't know, nothing beats like a tree that just says, this is my family's tree.
Oh, I'm totally the same way. And my parents actually every year since my sister and I were born, up even now in our 29 and 30s, they give us an ornament every year for Christmas. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's where the Philly Fanatic came from, was mom and dad.
What would you say your Philly Fanatic is your weirdest ornament?
Oh, that's a tough one. He is just weird in general.
Yeah.
Oh,
most Philly mascots are.
I think my weirdest one might be, I found it at a craft show and I'm so obsessed with him. It's like a handmade Oscar the Grouch. So he's in like a little film canister that just says trash on it, and then it's just like a little green puffball with like, eyes and a little tongue. And it just makes me laugh so hard that I just have an ornament on my tree that just says trash. That might be my weirdest. Nice. What is your weirdest one?
We have a xenomorph from Alien on our tree. It's very cool. It's very detailed. It's very frightening to our children. But we love it. So.
Put him high up. They won't be able to reach or see him as well.
He'll live where he lives. All right. Well, I think that wraps it up for us. Thank you all for listening. If you like this episode, please consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. If you really like this episode, please consider leaving us a review.
If you have any questions about this episode or the podcast in general, please email us at farmhouse@lancasterfarming.com.
You can also find us on social media at Lancaster Farming on most platforms.
Thank you again for listening and visiting us at the farmhouse. We hope you have a very happy Thanksgiving. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Candace.
We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
This episode of The Farmhouse is copyright 2024 by Lancaster Farming newspaper, part of the Steinman Communications family.
It was written by Stephanie Spiker and Candace Worzowski. It was produced by Eric Herlock. The music you have heard throughout the episode was brought to you by Tin Bird Shadow.